Hello everyone, welcome back. It's Space Engineers Plus Me, episode 80. I'm Mk.II, and today it's all the things that we've started on the Atlas Mk.II and haven't had a chance to finish. It's just, we've spread ourselves a little bit thin. We had a number of different things we were taking on. None of them got done. We're going to show you what we do have done. This is the sped up version of the ship turning. The actual version of turning the ship about 180 degrees to make another approach on the moon took just under 3 minutes. It's getting a little bit bulky. It doesn't want to turn. It doesn't really want to do anything. But it's kind of expected when you're talking about this giant industrial miner sort of thing that it's going to be heavy and not necessarily maneuverable. You'll notice also we've got the Omni Gamma parked on the back, and some of the machine is still exposed. The naming, the Gamma part of the Omni Gamma, coming from viewer Michael Lovelace, who suggested it in the comments section, and it just so happened to work pretty well. Trying to maintain some kind of naming convention with the Omni series of ships, that Omni Gamma just happened to be the next one in line, so that's what we went with. And we've made it to the moon, obviously. And this is the landing. Since we've added all this extra weight from the armor blocks, doing some more hull sculpting, and also the weight of the Omni Gamma itself, seeing whether or not we can actually get a controlled landing. And in this case, the answer is no. For some reason, it decided that the thrusters didn't want to fire. We had power to make them go, but it just wasn't doing enough to slow us down, and consequently, we landed at about 7 meters per second. And then because of the way the camera was aligned, it forced our view back into the bridge. So I was a little bit nervous leaving because I didn't know what I was going to find when I got outside after it had completely landed. So, kind of taking our time getting out of here. One of the things that I noticed, first of all, is we only lost one landing gear, and it's the front left landing gear right here. And then in terms of damage, the only thing I found that was showing any signs of damage was a little bit of deformation in the armor blocks in the rear right landing gear and the shroud around it. So, I mean, that's not bad. In the grand scheme of things, I can live with that. You don't even need materials to weld it back up. You just spend a little time, go around, weld it up. So that was not bad. Not the best landing, but not bad. And now we'll take a live look at what's going on. We'll take a tour around the ship, and we'll talk about what we're doing and what still needs to be done and what's next on the list. This is going to be one of those tours that starts off at the bottom and works its way up, because we've got, like I say, a lot of things that I've been working on. None of them are actually complete, but they're making progress. Sometimes progress is all we can ask for. Completion is what happens after we've had enough progress to say that it's done. Now, I mentioned in the last episode that the sensor system that we were using for our automatic ship leveling landing system wasn't working, and I did a bit of research into it, and it seems that what is happening is that the system that allows us to detect the proximity of the landing gears to the ground doesn't work very well on moons and planets. It uses the same toggle as what you would use for asteroids, but with moons and planets it's not accurate in gauging the surface, so that's why we were having difficulties with things being triggered long before they got anywhere near the ground. So we've already made the necessary changes up front. We're just basically taking out the armor block and the sensor and then putting the landing gear directly onto the piston. That's what we'll do for the back, and then it's going to be a manual system where you can, basically control each piston manually to set up the leveling system and kind of help out the ship to level off so that the auto gyro doesn't have to do all the work. That won't take long to set up, at least as far as, making the adjustments to the blocks and the landing gears. In terms of actually setting up the auto leveling system, that's going to be something that I'm going to put off. It's kind of lower on the list of priorities of things that I want to do. It won't take much. It's not a particularly complicated thing we're doing, but it'll take time that I'd rather be spending on other things related to the ship at the moment. So one of the things I did as well was I started building the skirt around the lower stuff, because we got all the thrusters kind of hanging down here. We've got the landing gears exposed. I find that these look just absolutely ridiculous with the piston and then the landing gear. Just the looks. I mean, functional, they're fine, but the appearance, if I can cover them up, I'm happy. That's kind of what I'm wanting to do with them. So that's what we're going to do. So as far as this goes, I still need to bring it back and cover around this backside here, but it goes all the way around the front. And it kind of gives the front a more finished appearance than the way it looked when it was basically cut off right here. and just flat, and then you can see the thrusters and the landing gear sticking down. It gives things a more designed appearance, like this was actually designed to look like something and not just a bunch of blocks with machines tacked to them. So that was a nice feature, a nice detail that we were able to add on, not complete. We're going to do the same thing on the back. I barely started, and this was more to make sure that I was going to be able to place the things that I wanted near the pistons than it was to actually start working on the rear skirt, and it seems to have worked out all right. I may actually just relocate these pistons altogether. We'll see if we can't find something that's slightly less in the way, because we saw after the landing this was the area that was deformed because of the piston and the landing gear were directly next to these blocks. So it's something for me to keep in mind, and again, that's something that we're going to put on the back burner. It's not the highest priority in the world. It's something that I will be doing. It's not that I dislike doing it, it's just we have to decide what we're going to do next if we ever want to get anything done, and I've decided that this isn't going to be it. This isn't going to be number one on the list. Come up here, and this is where I've spent a lot of time in the last couple of days building the shroud around the Omni Gamma. And the whole idea here is trying to find the balance between making it close enough to the ship that from certain angles it looks like the smaller ship is part of the larger ship. And you can see it kind of does. It's a slightly different shade of red, the Omni Gamma, than the Atlas Mk.II, and that's okay because we used the same shades of red here on the rings. You can see we've got a lighter shade of red, a darker shade of red, and then a lighter shade of red. This is the color that the whole Atlas Mk.II is made with, and then this lighter shade is what the Omni Gamma is made with. So just slight differences for the sake of being different. We got it fairly close. Most of the shroud is, well, I mean, the worst is it's a block away here. We might actually be able to get a little bit of detailing and make it look even closer. I don't even know if I'm necessarily going to want to bother, but it would be possibly an option. And then in here we get down to as close as half a block. Nice, clean tolerances. It's not necessarily difficult to dock or undock. Generally speaking, for undocking, it's easiest to just go straight up and away. For docking, if we come around the back, this area is open for a reason, this back part of the shroud. We're not going to be closing it up. But what I did to help make sure that everything was lined up and give us an idea very quickly and easily how the landing was going was I set up these little slope blocks and the ones in the front so that this landing gear kind of fits in there just perfectly. And then there's another set over here. If these two landing gears are lined up with the blocks so that the front of the gear is touching the block and the sides of the gears are touching the blocks, that means that basically the whole thing is aligned and in the right spot and ready to go. It doesn't seem to want to touch down, and I think that has something to do with the connectors here and the blocks and such that might be getting in the way. But it works to align it and make sure that everything is where it's supposed to be. As you can see, as I mentioned, we've got connectors so that the big ship and the little ship are connected properly. And I like it. I like the idea of the shroud, and you don't realize that there's a smaller drop ship kind of thing in there until it starts to lift off. The front needs work. The front shroud design, it's not horrible, but it needs work. It needs a little bit of refinement. We've got this area here that there's like the two lines that come together at this odd angle, and then it's a flat section, and then it goes kind of rounded, and it's not working for me. And again, this is another one of those things where we look at it and say, okay, we've done a lot of work, we've made a lot of progress. If you get a great idea, go ahead and implement it, but in the meantime, there's other things that we need to be working on. So the shroud, I'm very happy to have some progress made on that, and we're going to leave it for now and kind of move on to other things. The main thing that I want to be focusing on now is the auto gyro, which is, it's just been sitting here in this weird collection of angles since we were messing around and had the two spinning. What we need to do is flatten them out, line them up properly so that they are where they need to be, and then we can finish off the inner ring, which is going to need not a whole lot of work, and get ourselves in a position where we can start managing the tether. It's just going to be like the tab for the track ship that we had on the original Atlas, only this one's going to be smaller. There's going to be no track ship, and it's going to connect directly to the bore head so that it's going to be a more streamlined system than what we had on the original Atlas. And then the auto gyros will help with the leveling, the last minute fine-tuning leveling after we've theoretically leveled the ship with the landing gear system that we're going to be working on. And then we can just kind of let it go. And if we can get this guy mining and processing stuff while we're doing the last of the cosmetic detailing on the ship, then that will be kind of the ideal situation, because I like to have a little bit of time to do a bit of a shakedown and find out not only what works and doesn't work the first time you fire it up and right away, but also what kind of breaks down after a certain period of use. Sometimes letting things run for a while is where you get to really see whether or not the systems are refined and stabled before we offer them as a blueprint. So by the next episode, I hope to have these guys flat and some progress made on the interior of the ring, just to give us an idea of exactly what we need in terms of space and how strong the whole system is going to be, given that it's all basically pivoting off rotors. If we can get some of the tether done, that would be fantastic. But realistically, we're relative to how long it took us to build the Atlas, we're making extremely good time on the Atlas Mk.II, and we're hopefully just going to continue making that good progress until it's done. So if you want to be notified when we add new videos to this series showing progress on this and other ships, by all means you can subscribe to my channel. You can also follow me on social media. Links for social media in the information box below the video. Feel free to leave your comments and feedback. Thanks for watching, guys, and take care.